Hey guys, I'm Azra, and in this Lord of the Rings Rise to War video, I'm going to show you a guide about Dáin Ironfoot. Let's get going. So this commander, from his typing, is a warrior, which is perfectly fine for Dáin. This is increasing his physical damage by plus 10%. That's perfect. Looking at his attributes, this is awesome too. His highest attribute is might. This is what we need. The more might, the more damage we are going to deal. Then we have focus, but this is not really important. And looking at the speed stat, one can immediately see that is very low. And this is unfortunate. Maybe you want to equip the Fiddle of the Eldest with Blitz, so you have initiative with your commander and army in the first 4 rounds. And this could help you snowball with Dáin. This is just a theory, just my opinion, but we have to try it out. Then looking at his items, I have Hammer of Moria with lethal weapon. And I finally got myself a superior halberd with fire protection, already 4-star refined. Once I get 1 more halberd, I can 5-star refine it, and then it will become burn damage received minus 60%. Looking at my helmet, I am running the Casque of Submerged Isle with Aegis. This is in case I'm running an army with multiple units. I don't want them to nuke themselves. So every damage counts. After that, I have the Erebos Pride with Iron Guard. Well, I wish I could have equipped the Box of Knowledge with Warrior, but we will come to that later in the itemization part. It's time to check out Dáin's skills and see what he specializes in. Let's get started. Lord of the Iron Hill, it's okay, but not what I would be speccing. I think that we need to invest into all of our abilities that deal damage instead of letting our army do the work. That's not what Dáin does. Dáin is doing the hard lifting. Then he has Fortify. This too isn't what will benefit us. I think there are much more viable options. Dwarven Leader, nice to have, but not a must. Let's continue. Ironfoot, now we are talking. So here we begin to see one of our best skills for Dáin Ironfoot. Rush means that even though this ability has a cooldown of 2 rounds, and being activated on round 3, Rush means that even in round 1 you get to activate it. So this is the meaning of Rush. And after that your cooldown begins. But I will show you that later. Ironfoot is dealing a decent amount of damage, and it has a 35% chance to stun 1 target, which is already worth enough to at least put 1 point into it, at least for the stun. If you have maxed it out, you will also get a plus 15 speed, which he desperately needs. At the top you have Heavily Wounded. This skill is going to be activated every 4 rounds. It is dealing physical damage and also nullifying any healing for the next 2 rounds. Kinda nice. This is what makes him so hard for healing commanders. Then we have Vengeance. This is also nice to have. On round 6 you start using this, like it says round 5 onwards. That doesn't mean on round 5 you're dealing damage with this. It means after round 5 this is proccing. And then you're going to deal physical damage on each round once with this. At Respect 3 we have Durance Blood. This is increasing our skill damage in total. Every title you see here, such as Ironfoot or King Under the Mountain, which is dealing damage, is getting a damage increase with Durance Blood. But also all of your blue damaging skills such as Vengeance. Also Whirlwind. Speaking of which, Whirlwind, activated every 3 rounds. It's going to hit 2 targets with lots of physical damage and prioritizes melee units. Looking at the bottom we have All In. Every 4 rounds this is going to get activated. This is Dáin's biggest bursty ability he has. It's dealing physical damage, but also it has a negative side effect, which is, well, the next damage Dáin is going to deal after All In is getting reduced by 50% if you have maxed out All In, which is why skill order is very important for Dáin, which I will be showing to you in a moment. Like All In and also Dwarven Grid are making him sensitive to his skill order. Then we have King Under the Mountain. Every other round this is going to get activated. You won't activate it on round 1. The first time this is being active is on round 2. And then you're going to deal physical damage and also increase the defensive stat of your Dwarven units. and this can stack up 5 times in battle, and when you have maxed it out, it's also giving plus 2 HP for your dwarven units. A great title overall. At the top we have Longbeard. This is reducing, well, it's not reducing, but it's ignoring the defensive stat of the enemy army by 50% if you have maxed it out. A great skill to have, and Dáin really loves this skill. The same is the case for Dwarven Grid. Like, this is so crucial for Dáin, and in a moment you will see why. Now let me show you the skill order of Dáin. It looks something like this. We go to King Under the Mountain. You can just max this out, there is no problem with this. And after that is done, we go over to Dwarven Grid. And then Longbeard, Durin's Blood, and then Whirlwind. Now here comes the important part, because skill order is important here. All in needs to be picked now, and remember there is a 50% damage penalty for the next skill that's going to land, which is Ironfoot. Why is it Ironfoot? Well, it has Rush. Remember what Rush does? It activates on round 1, and then the 2 rounds, like the 2 cooldown rounds start. So Rush activates on round 1, the cooldowns, and on round 4 Ironfoot activates once more. And guess what? All In activates on round 4, which is why the skill coming afterwards is getting the damage penalty. And it's okay that Ironfoot is receiving the damage penalty, since we are going to spend only 2 points into it anyway. And after that, let's also get the Heavily Wounded just for the healing nullification. And then we can finish this by picking Vengeance. This isn't screwing our skill order. Let's also quickly establish what strengths and weaknesses Dáin has. We start just as always with his strengths. The first strength is that he has high commander damage. Well, looking at all of these skills, that is kind of obvious, but it is what it is. The second strength would be that he has anti-healing with Heavily Wounded. Last but not least, he has low upkeep costs. Why, you ask? Well, he is already efficient enough with 1 stack of Guardians, and Guardians are easy to conscript, and they have nice special abilities that further mitigate physical damage, and also a passive that is reducing fire damage by 20%. Let's also quickly talk about his weaknesses. Well, I think it is kind of obvious that he is weak against CC. That could be Commander Madness, that is a big one. All of these abilities would be directed towards his own army. You don't want that to happen. And the second one is Commander Stun. That is a very strong mechanic in the game, but it's going to hurt Dáin even more. And then we also have to take care of Silence, but not every commander has Silence. And also keep in mind that Silence is kinda good against every commander, since it is not allowing you to hit with your skills. Now what I would like to know is, does Silence also counter your titles? If yes, that is more the reason why Silence is a weakness of Dáin. And then if you're running a multiple unit army, well, you are kind of weak against Army Madness, so you have to take care of that too. His second weakness is that he is kind of weak against Evade, but I think that too is behaving like Silence. Every commander is weak against it, since that is the point where everybody starts to snowball. You don't want the enemy, such as Gil-galad, evade in the first 3 rounds. You have to somehow counter evade if evade is active. You can do that with the Wizard's Firework and Hunter's Mark, for instance. And guess what? Dáin too is also weak against high commander damage. He may have high commander damage himself, but whoever outspeeds him is also very strong against him. And his last weakness would be elemental damage, and this is a big one. Like, I have left the biggest weakness for last, and this, I'm telling you, is totally destroying Dáin. You need to equip something to make him more resistant against elemental damage. But in the battle reports you will see what I am meaning when I say he is weak against elemental damage. It's time to check out Dáin's gear. So we are going to start with purple gear. And I think this is very straightforward. Battle axe with flay, let's not even talk about this. This is so nice to have. And then looking at his armor, By now you all know me, superior Hauberk with fire protection against evil sight. That is a must. If you have this, you are never going to unequip this. If you don't have this, you can fight with the quilted armor with focus protection. This is going to help you, let's say, against Oathbreakers, Keepers, or let's say Gandalf the White in his focus damaging skill. Scale Mail is also very nice. It's giving your melee units plus defenses and also melee vigor to make them even more tanky. As our helmet options, well, we have a few choices over here. I think the full helm with melee vigor is the more universal approach. But if you want to specialize against elemental damage, you may want to go with Blinding Barrier and Knights in your army as your tanks. If, for any reason, you want to run a multiple unit army, you may want to consider equipping a Horseman's Helmet with Resolve just to have the Madness immunity against Grimar, Sauron, Isildur, and so on. As accessory, we want to have the Hiflane. This is the universal approach, but if you are aiming to snipe a Gil-galad, you may want to run a Wizard's Firework with Hunter's Mark. You need the pursuit effect, or else Gil-galad is going to eat you. In regards to his golden weapon, I think there are two choices. The first one being Hammer of Moria with lethal weapon. This has lots of might, but also lots of defenses for your dwarven unit. Lethal weapon? Like, it sounds nice on paper, but you also need to understand how lethal weapons mechanic work. What is triggering lethal weapon? Basically, anything, like any skill that is dealing damage is triggering Hammer of Moria. Here I have prepared a little Excel sheet and let me explain what you are seeing right now. To the left you see all the rounds and at the top you see all the skills that are dealing damage. Why have I listed this? Well, lethal weapon always triggers when a damage dealing ability goes off. And these are all the damage dealing abilities of this Dáin. As you see, on round 1, Ironfoot will trigger first because it has Rush built into it, and then the 2-round cooldown starts. And so on. Like, in total, whenever something like this procs an ability, a skill, that is a chance of triggering lethal weapon. And in total, just by looking over our skills, we have 21 attempts, 21 chances of proccing lethal weapon. Will you get lucky enough? Will you have lots of procs? Maybe, who knows? But this is just speaking of his skills. Remember, you also have normal attacks. Like, on every round you get 1 normal attack. That means 10 additional chances of proccing lethal weapon. So we have a total number of 31 chances of proccing lethal weapon. And this is what I wanted you to see. Many people aren't aware of lethal weapon and how the mechanics work, but by now you should know better. But let's jump back to the weapons and see which in the end might be better. So, as our second option I have listed the Axe of Khazad-dûm with Cleave, and I'm not sure which one is better. From a mathematical standpoint, Cleave is going to deal more physical damage because 50% chance of proccing this in 10 rounds, right? Like whenever you deal a normal attack, you have a 50% chance of proccing this. That in itself, like if you have done the math, is more likely to deal more physical damage than lethal weapon with its 25% chance of proccing. 25%, yes, but 31 times. It's still, mathematically speaking, not capable of dealing as much damage as Cleave. I'm not sure which one is better, but Hammer of Moria has also plus defenses for his army, so I'm rolling with the Hammer of Moria, unless you metamicians out there convince me otherwise. As his golden chest piece, I have decided to go with Durin's Plate, since there isn't any other golden chest plate that is as competitive as this. It has tactical maneuvers, but also dominance. Both are fine, I'm not sure which one is better. Looking at his helmet now, this is a bit more complicated, but one can quickly establish that Dáin's Respect 10 item is totally worth getting. Like one of the best Respect 10 items in the game, and I would definitely invest into it. And also all of my golden mithril I would invest into this. But it is hard to get, which is why you can make do with other golden items, such as the Iron Bassinet. Lots of might and plus defenses, but also Fortitude of Soldiers, but also Fortitude of Dwarves. Both behave in the same way. It is mitigating damage, In case you are fighting good side, you may want to equip arrow suppression since good side has lots of ranged units, but in case you are fighting lots of stun, Resolve of Dwarves is your go-to. And last but not least, we have the Cask of Submerged Isle. Well, you could run Aegis if you run multiple units in your army, but there is an even more interesting special effect called Formation Break. In the first 4 rounds, you are going to deal 24% increased damage against melee units if you have maxed Refine this. So, these are the helmets I would be rolling with. And then, looking at his accessories, I think the best one by far should be the Box of Knowledge when you have max refined this. Because then you will have a chance of 60% of triggering these effects. You will have a 60% chance of triggering physical damage dealt plus 9% for your commander, and another 60% chance of triggering the second effect. Physical damage ignores 30% of the target's defense for your commander. So this, in my opinion, is the best accessory for him. But there is also an alternative, which is very interesting. Fiddle of the Eldest, just as I have explained in the beginning of this video, Blitz can help you snowball. Dáin is very slow, but with this you at least get initiative for the first 4 rounds. Maybe this is worth enough to snowball. I'm not sure, we need to see reports coming in and have a side-by-side comparison with the other trinket. And there is one other special effect that could be viable with the Fiddle of the Eldest called Heroism. This is increasing his damage by 18%. This is huge. Alright, you are reducing the army's damage by -6%, but that's not so bad since you are getting much more return of investment for your commander. And also, this is giving your commander and your army plus speed. This is what he desperately needs. Let's have a look at Dáin's troop composition. It is very easy. Anything tanky works. Now remember our little decoy approach, right? We also want to have some decoys in our army composition. I have 1% hunters and then 1% sentinels. There they are. And then I just fill 1 stack of a tanky unit. That could be 98% guardians. I have my evade active for sentinels to soak some damage. The same goes for my hunters. And my guardians are going to tank it. And look at this, they also have heatproof. This with the superior hauberk and fire protection will make you survive also against Witch Kings. Now, instead of fire resistance and more physical damage, you could also go with Iron Warriors. Well, they are more resistant against physical damage and also more effective against melee units. But remember, 20% less fire resistance. Or how about instead of having Iron Warriors, you just have 2 decoys and then Muma kills. Like 98% Muma kills. That too is very scary. Now here is another army composition. You could have 2 tanky units, such as Guardians and Ram Riders. Both have -20% fire damage received. And also Ram Riders have Trample. This is going to reduce the defensive stat of the enemy army, which means Dáin himself is going to deal more physical damage against them. And then you just click this button, have an equal number of these units. But what you may want to do now is also have 1 minimum amount of a decoy just to soak some damage. And this could be your second army composition. Now you might argue instead of Guardians, maybe having Iron Warriors would be better, but that's totally up to you. Or you could also do something like this, instead of having like a 50-50% composition over here. How about reducing this number to around 19% and then increasing your Guardians even more? Like this could also work. And instead of Guardians, you can also do this with Iron Warriors instead. Here is another army composition I like to run, which revolves around Swan Knights. Why am I doing this? I would like to have an equal amount of these units, and there is a reason for it. So, I have 2 Dwarven units, and they are going to stack their defenses because Dáin has his Respect 5 title. that is giving Dwarven units plus defenses. I just need to ensure that they survive as long as I can. And I can ensure that by having Swan Knights. They will buy time for my Dwarven units. They have Protector, they are taunting every enemy unit, and are going to eat every damage in the first 3 rounds. That's totally fine, since in these 3 rounds, they have plus 100 defense, which is making them very likely to survive. But not against elemental damage. Elemental damage will nuke your Swan Knights. So, by that time, I hope that you have enough stacks to have more physical damage mitigation with your plus defenses for your Dwarven units. And you don't have to worry about elemental damage with them that much, because they have burn damage received minus 20%. And also you need to equip a superior Hauberk max refined to have minus 60% fire damage received. That stacks with this effect, which means you will have minus 80% fire damage received if you have Hauberk max refined with these Dwarven units. And yeah, it's working out fine so far. Let's jump over to the battle reports and see what is going on with Dáin. I have prepared a little experiment over here. To the right you see a fellowship friend of mine who is called Elserk. By the way, big shout out to you, Elserk, for volunteering for this experiment. And we have done something here. Elserk is running the meta build. We both are naked, we both have the same army composition. Elserk is at respect level 5, I am at respect level 6. But he has this build, it is the meta build. And I am running something called the burst damage build, or call it the Dwarven Grid build. This build revolves around King Under the Mountain, Durin's Blood, All In, and Ironfoot. Yeah, and also, of course, Dwarven Grid. So, let's check out the result. As you see, I am dealing around 6k less damage, and it's not as reliable as his meta build. And then I wanted to try out another build. Let me show you the other build, which is called the... let's just call it the skill damage build, alright? So, Elserk is running the same build. This is the meta build. Same army composition. I am running the skill damage build. This time I'm focusing on King Under the Mountain, Durin's Blood, Whirlwind, All In, and Ironfoot. But this is the result. And after having seen this report, I was thinking that the skill damaging build is better than the first build I have shown to you, and better than the meta build. But then I have copied the same build. Like, Elserk and I, we have went with the same meta build. And look at the results. It is the same build. This is so much better than the first 2 builds I have shown to you. Like, better than the burst build, better than the skill damaging build. The meta build is, because of this very reason, my favorite. How did we achieve this result? There must be a reason for it, right? We have the same army composition, we have the same skill order, the same build. What is happening over here? Now, let me show you something. I'm going to enter the battle reports. So let's scroll over to round 1, and here you see once Dáin attacks. So my Dáin is attacking with Ironfoot, but Elserk's sentinels avoid my attack. You know what that means? That the skill Dwarven Grid isn't being activated. And this is the big difference. Now let me explain to you why this is a big difference. Before I do so, let's have a look into Dwarven Grid. So Dwarven Grid, Commander, first 4 instances of skill damage in each battle, plus 50%. This is a huge damage increase. Keep that in mind. We now jump back to the Excel sheet with the skill order. My Dáin couldn't hit Elserk's sentinels because they evaded my attack. Do you know what this means? So Ironfoot was evaded in round 1. Which is why that 1 stack of my Dwarven Grid wasn't consumed. And whenever that happens, you don't waste a stack of Dwarven Grid. They just stay as the same number. I have still 4 stacks of Dwarven Grid left. They get passed on to the next damaging skill, which is, if you look into the skill order, King Under the Mountain in round 2 will trigger my first Dwarven Grid stack. So I have 3 more stacks remaining, which are going to be consumed by Whirlwind, and you don't have to be afraid of Whirlwind consuming 2 stacks. That's not the case. You are going to hit twice with 50% increased power because of Dwarven Grid, but you don't consume 2 Dwarven Grid stacks. That's not the case, just 1. So by now you have consumed 2 Dwarven Grid stacks, one from King Under the Mountain, the second one from Whirlwind. Your third one is going to be consumed by King Under the Mountain again, and then your last one, your 4th Dwarven Grid, is going to kick in for All In. And All In is your burstiest ability, which damage is going to increase by another 50% because of Dwarven Grid. And this changed the game. Like, actually, it is a good thing that the enemy is evading your first attack. Ironfoot isn't dealing lots of damage anyway. We have only put 2 points into it, which is dealing 35% damage. So it is kinda a waste to have your Dwarven Grid being consumed by Ironfoot. So you want Ironfoot being dodged, being evaded. Now, let me show you how much damage we have done with All In. Just as you see, I am in round 4 right now, and this is where All In kicks in for the first time. Here I am right now. Dáin Ironfoot activates All In. Dwarven Grid's active damage dealt plus continues to affect Dáin. Now let's have a look at the damage we have done with All In. Almost 46k damage, physical damage to his guardians with All In. That means we have killed 1000 units, almost 1100 units. That is the biggest damage I have seen with physical damage. Like a nice little mechanic. Keep it in mind, it's not a bad thing if the enemy evades in the first round against Dáin. So you can come hard with All In later. I just wanted to put this out because it took us quite some time to figure this out. But yeah, this is definitely the build I prefer. This is for me the very reason why I consider this the meta build. Here is a fight against the King Aragon player. Let's see what's going on over here. So Dáin Ironfoot against physical damage is doing a decent job. This is my gear I have right now: Hammer of Moria, Fire Protection, Formation Break, Iron Guard, and this is the meta build. I am running an equal amount of tanky units, 3 units Ram Rider Guardian, Iron Warriors, and it's working out great. But there is a reason, because Aragon right now has specialized against countering Witch Kings. I can see it because, first of all, his knights are his main tanks, and also by checking out his gear I see Fire Protection and also Blinding Barrier. So you can argue that this fight wasn't fair, because if he knew he was fighting a Dáin, he could have, well, switched out his gear in order to counter me. And also maybe he could have switched some points in his build. He doesn't need to fear stun or madness to that extent against Dáin. He could have maybe went into his skill damaging build and be more of a danger against Dáin. But anyway, I thank you, Saito, for volunteering. It was very hard to find players to do some testing. And at this point, guys, don't be shy. You can chat to me, you can reach out to me. I am in desperate need of finding people to do some quality testing. And people aren't always available and not always near to my settlement, which is why the more people we are, the more people I have to reach out to, the better for us, so we can prepare to get some fair reports. But let's have a look at the damage we have done. So here you see 307k damage from our army in total. Dáin has done 230k of that. This is my army's damage. Let's go on. Here I am fighting a Sauron. This time I have an equal amount of 3 tanky units, and I also included depth defenders. But this is the result I have achieved, and there is a reason for it. It's a loss. I didn't equip Aegis. Instead I went in with Formation Break. So that was the big mistake. Also I wanted to try out the Battle Axe with Flay just to see what's going on here. Sauron has this gear. Alright, right now he has Flay, but maybe he's still waiting for Smite to drop, who knows. Scale Mail with Guard. I think a melee Vigor would have been better. Hysteria and Hunter's Mark, just in case he is running into a Gilgalad, I think. And the skills are also very good. Like, you can't complain about it. Here is the detailed view. 248k damage in total. Dáin has done less damage than compared to the other report, and our units have done this much of damage. Here I am fighting a Witch King, and there is a reason why I am losing to this extent. Let's check it out. So my gear, lethal weapon, fire protection, Aegis, okay, that's good. Iron Guard, meta build. But we still have lost this fight. The question is why? Now, this Witch King has outstandingly good gear. Melee Might, fire protection, Resolve of Urukai, and Opportune Strike. And this one is very scary. When this procs, his alchemists are going to deal so much more damage, because instead of doing like the minimum range of damage, he is ensuring that he is hitting with all he has, like max damage. And when he is hitting with max damage, this is going to be multiplied with this. And the damage coming out of that is just crazy. And after checking out the battle reports, I have seen that in his very first round, Opportune Strike procced for his alchemists. And guess what? When that is combined with Convener, that's going to hurt, right? Like Convener over here. You attack with maximum damage twice in round 1. How am I supposed to survive that? Let's look at the damage. 311k damage from me, and he has totally devastated me. That's the damage of my units. I expected so much more from my depth defenders, but I guess that fire damage was even too hard for them. Here is another Witch King fight against the same player, same gear, but I have changed the troop composition because I now know I'm up against strong fire damage. What can I do? How about having more of that unit type that is more resistant against fire? I have included more Ram Riders and more Guardians. Instead of my tanky units getting wiped by his strong fire damage with Opportune Strike and Convener, how about letting my decoys getting hit? And just by theory crafting it kinda worked, right? So lucky me, I guess. Here I'm fighting against a very strong Black Serpent player. What have I done here differently? Lethal weapon, fire protection, Aegis, and Iron Guard. I am in the meta build. This time, I have an equal amount of 3 units in my army. 3 tanky units, one of them being Swan Knights. And Swan Knights are buying some time for my Dwarven tanky units, so they get to stack King under the Mountain. I want them to be as tanky as possible. So I am buying them time. My Swan Knights are protecting them in the first 3 rounds, and they have enough plus defenses to survive hardcore physical damage. And it's working out greatly. You see, Black Serpent in his Evil Man build right now is doing nothing but physical damage. And it's okay, we can take it. East-Stealing Spear with Mounted Might, massive breastplate, significant protection, Tranquility, one of the best helmets in the game. I would definitely keep this just because of this effect. This effect is so strong. And Drums of Barad-dûr with Iron Guard. So a very bulky, tanky army over here. If you look at the report, we see we have done 237k damage. Remember, this is Black Serpent. He is very tanky, especially against physical damage. And this is the outcome. And this is a detailed view of our troops. Let this be my last report. So here I am running with this equipment, Aegis, Iron Guard, meta build, an equal amount of Ram Riders and Guardians, but also 1 decoy. And then Arwen is going with an equal amount of mounted units, as I see. And this Arwen is amazing. Like, look at the gear, Carver with Smite, then Quilted Armor with Focus Protection, Trapper Suit with Hysteria, and also the Respect 10 item of Arwen. Such a strong player, like good gear, high respect level, and the skills totally make sense. But this is the result, this is the damage we have done, almost 400k. Now, why am I showing this report? Because Arwen is a very strong healing commander. And remember Dáin's strength. Among his strength, he is strong against healers. And this is living proof of that. Not just physical damage, like, yeah, that's one of his strengths, high physical damage, but also anti-healing. I think this report is speaking for itself. Now, this is the end of my video. I have to thank Elcirc again and also Saito for volunteering. You guys have been a big help. And again, guys, don't be shy. You can reach out to me. Like, we have a growing community on my Discord channel. If you want to join, just ask. I'm happy to invite you over. We have a meme channel. We have like so many friendly people helping each other out, getting the right build, the right gear, the right composition of your troops. Like, it's getting there. We are slowly but steadily getting there. But yeah, that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by leaving a like and consider subscribing. I see you guys next time.